And it's like, okay, I had a good game. Stockton had 12 points, 15 assists. I had 22 points. I had to have at least 10 assists. I go to the game, I got one assist, man. They was giving him every benefit of the doubt, and the opposing teams weren't getting the benefit of the doubt.
Karl Malone at the three-point line. Karl Malone come down, crossover, spin move, pump fake, lay it up. They be like, Karl Malone, assist, John Stockton.
To pass John Stockton?
Yeah.
I don't like saying never, but ain't nobody catching that. I don't know who the statisticians was, who used to do the stats in Utah, but ain't nobody catching that.
You want to recruit those people to Houston?
Man.
I don't like saying never, but ain't nobody catching that. I don't know who the statisticians was, who used to do the stats in Utah, but ain't nobody catching that. You want to recruit those people to Houston. Man. When it comes to NBA history and NBA lore, there's an old wise tale, old myth regarding John Stockton. I've heard for quite some time, and I'm sure you've heard it, too. The idea is that John Stockton, back in the day, the 80s, 90s, had his numbers inflated and juiced to boost up his profile as the best point guards in the game. And looking at these stories, you can find players, analysts, just fans of the game, all saying Stockton in his era had inflated assist numbers. They were juiced by the scorekeepers. Part of this training is they would show us video clips, They show a Stockton to Malone clip, and, there's a discussion. I'm like, that wasn't an assist. It was a pass. And then, Malone dribbled a couple times, pump fake, and then, made a tough shot. And that's great. But, that's to me there's no real connection. There's no causal connection between the pass and the basket. And the majority opinion by a mile was, oh, no, that's definitely an assist. I'm like, what? Oh, that's John Stockton. This was something understood, that you grease the wheels or you pump up the stats for your guys. When he says, yeah, John Stockton, the assertion right there is we need John Stockton to be a star. So, stopping that right there very quickly. Again, when it comes to this narrative, no hardcore proof, evidence, or data. It's all conjecture, hearsay. I heard something from someone that said this back in the 90s. If you're someone like me, those stories, while interesting, don't prove anything. What I deal in is hardcore proof data and evidence. And looking at Stockton, I want to find the truth for myself. And to do that, I went back to 1988. I was looking at Stockton that year, his first really great NBA season, leading the league in assists, and for his entire career, his third highest average ever. He was special. Stockton in '88 was wheeling and dealing at an all-time great level. And looking at the postseason specifically, that year versus the Lakers in a 7-game series, he had some all-time games where his assists were oddly high. Game 7 versus the Lakers, he had 20. Game 5, he had 24. If John Stockton ever has assist numbers padded, it had to be in '88 versus the Lakers in that year's postseason. As looking at series in total, 16.4 dimes per game. It's not true. That's impossible. So, when it comes to the '88 series versus the Lakers, a full 7-game series, I watched every game start to finish. And here's what I found. This guy's assist numbers, for a fact, were not accurate, but not in the way you'd think. John Stockton's assist numbers are actually deflated and not inflated. For example, look at Game 2 in Los Angeles. John Stockton officially this game had 13 dimes, but you watch the film, it's more like 16, especially by today's standards. Asterisk clip, rebound to Utah Jazz. Malone will get his first 2 for the Lakers. Missing some inside opportunities, and the Jazz, they've had to work hard. In his case, it's a little comedy, but when the game is on, he's one serious coach. Bailey over Jabber, and he's good. Down to 5 seconds left. Well, they're trying to find Karl Malone down deep on the box, and they use it again. Stockton dribbling away till it gets down to about 6 seconds. Iron. Utah's biggest lead has been an 8-point lead. They're trying to build it up to 6 here. Thorough Bailey from just now, trying to get it back up to 6. Hanson over Thompson do a good job of forcing to find somebody else. Evoron is the guy they foul. What a shot. Block shot by Eaton. His 7. Stockton to Kofo. Kofo with a nice. Malone over Randy's to volleyball it over the top. 5 on the shot clock. Kofo Malone. Boy, the Lakers just can't get anything going. Utah is right there. Well, he did everything right, and the ball bounced off Hanson's leg, and Thompson near steal. Turnover against the Jazz. Only 4 seconds left to shoot it. Hanson's going to force one, and that's a guy they and the Utah Jazz to Thor Bailey. Interesting. Asterisk. So, stopping that Game 2 footage right there, John Stockton, officially on record, had 13 assists. Watching the film, no doubt, had more. By my count, had 16 exactly. Now, looking past Game 2 in Los Angeles, the Utah Jazz home games, one of the theories about Stockton in his career was in Utah. His numbers at home were inflated. They reduced. Looking at this series again, the exact opposite. Game 3 officially had 12 dimes. According to me, he had 15. Game 4 only had 13, but my count had 16. Then Game 6 officially had 17. My count had 18. John Stockton in Games 3, 4, and 6, all at home, has numbers deflated and not inflated. For proof, watch this. Asterisk clip. As the Utah Jazz and Los Angeles Lakers get ready for Game 3 of their series, it's tied 1. They refused to take in Game number 2 until it was too late in the ball game. Malone quickly the other way. Barely from one side of the floor here. They're looking for Bailey inside. Hanson from the corner. They get him. Very early. 7:10 left. First quarter. Stockton clears it off to Malone. 17-footer. Yes. And Hughes did all right while he was in there. Hanson on the run. Nice. Starts over with a new clock. Goes right back to it. He scored it. Malone ahead to Stockton. Green almost stole that. Off to Malone. Way in. Misses Bailey. Here comes Stockton again. He's pass off to Hans. Hanson thought about a 3. Goes baseline and gets better closer to the basket than he is. Eden goes again. Bailey or Malone down on the block. Hans comes from outside. For the Lakers, it's guard. Stockton. Rambles couldn't control. Hanson beats the field. Malone. Yes. What? And Malone out of there with it again. They find Stockton. Malone. Yes. What a shot. 8 on the shot clock. You know they're going to use a lot of time. There's the guy that all the rebound Stockton. Where did he come from? To Malone. No foul, the Utah team. So on behalf of Miller Lite Turner Broadcasting, proud to donate $1,000 to the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation in his name. Steve, that's as good a ball game as I've seen all year. Asterisk. So, stopping that footage right there very quickly. When it comes to Games 3, 4, and 6, all games at home for Utah, the assist numbers were deflated and not inflated. As looking at average, according to NBA history, it was only 14.0. According to my count, more like 16.3. That 3-game sample size is a pretty big discrepancy. And once he improved, Stockton didn't have juice numbers. He actually had deflated numbers. That was giving him every benefit of the doubt. Liar. Now, speaking of big-time God stat numbers, we have Game 5 in Los Angeles, where Stockton on record had 24 dimes. Now, this game is pretty peculiar. I was looking at the game, John Stockton, he was willing and dealing, but watching the film, I only found 23 assists, of course, 1 short. And you might say, why was that? Well, here's my thoughts. Back in 1988 for these games, I'm assuming there was only one channel to watch. So, with that being the case, multiple games going on, they'd switch over here and there, leave the Lakers game, checking on Boston, Dallas, whoever it may be. For some reason, in the 80s, especially this game, they did that over and over again. Asterisk clip, first whistle of the game. And right now, we're going to go back to our studios. Craig Seeger is going to have news on that Dallas-Denver contest. Thank you, Pete. The 5th game of L.A., Utah just beginning, but the 5th game of Dallas and Denver is about ready to conclude. 1 minute 37 seconds later. Mavericks 109, Nuggets 104. Let's go back to Atlanta now and Craig Sager. And Game 6 of that series will be Thursday night. We, of course, will have that right here on Superstation TBS. The final in just a minute. But let's go back to Pete Van Waron and Steve Jones at the Forum in L.A., where the Lakers are taking on the Utah Jazz. Asterisk. So, that right there's unfortunate, if you ask me. That one John Stockton assist that isn't on record is somewhere buried in those clips that were not recorded on TV. Now, looking at Game 7, back to the same old story. On record, Stockton had 20 dimes. That for Game 7 is a record. But looking at the count, it wasn't 20. It was actually 21. Asterisk clip. Style of ball, a very pacing team in games that they won. Malone goes baseline, and it's blocked out. Oh, he's really performed a clinic in what a game. And Iveron, Carl Bailey with a steal. 2-on-1. Bailey, half 4 for the Jazz. 9 on the clock. Bailey with a change the shot. That's as good as a block. Malone against Michael Thompson. And it's a 3. They have 4-on-3. Karl Malone goes baseline for the stocking baseline. 3-point attempt for Hansen. And now Utah's got to do a better job with their set offense. 143 Lakers. Trying to get it to Malone. He does in good position against Michael Thompson. Had help. 8 on the shot clock. Malone's responsibility is to give help defensively, and that's leaving Byron Scott open. Hansen with a 3. Years ago would be a dead crowd, and now we hear them. They're really into this game. And Hansen nearly lost possession to go in the third. Karl Malone fights his way in and gets the Lakers 18-22. Hansen into the hands of Stockton with 6 minutes to go. Bailey with a John Stockton on the turnover. Bob Hansen, and that would have been a playoff record for him. A high, because his high is in this series with 29. Damn. Asterisk. So, stopping that Game 7 footage right there, looking at the entire series in totality, John Stockton, on record officially, had 115 dimes this series. That first single series is a record. And look at the average, 16.4. Now, like we saw this entire video, those numbers are far from accurate. I was looking at my count. Total assists for John Stockton, 125. That average, 17.9. That right there, for a 7-game sample size, is a pretty big difference. And looking at percentage-wise, a 9% margin of error from my count versus the official NBA count. And looking at Game 5 in particular, that is the only game John Stockton technically had an inflated assist number, 23, not 24. But besides that, Games 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, the assist numbers are not accurate, and they're actually deflated. When you want to talk stats and numbers, points, boards, and assists, at face value, they seem pretty straightforward and simple. A point's a point, a rebound's a rebound, an assist's an assist. But like we see over and over again, the boundary for what's an assist now versus then have expanded year by year. Clip. Arabiata is really, really spicy. La Brea floater. Got it. I mean, he doesn't even bring it down to the top of his head. He keeps it up as high as he can. The greatest at that was Kevin M. And then, Malone dribbled a couple times, pump fake, and then, made a tough shot, and that's great, but that's to me not, that didn't, there's no real connection. There's no causal connection between the pass and the basket. And the majority opinion by mile was, oh no, that's definitely an assist. I'm like, what? Look, that's John Stockton. Alex Caruso, a staunch defender, active hands, got that steal. Dummo downhill with the lane. Karl Malone at the 3-point line. Karl Malone come down, crossover, spin move, pump fake, laid up. They'd be like, Karl Malone assist John Stockton. Now, stopping those clips right there very quickly. For the 2010s era of basketball,